Hey everyone, what's going on? On October 5th in the mainstream media, we got this story about the death of the busboy who comforted Robert Kennedy after he was shot. And this guy, they told us he died on October 1st. And if you've been following what I talk about on this channel, which is a lot to do with gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases that's literally used every day to script our mainstream media. It's scripted with our told history. Our sports leagues are all scripted with this system. If you understand gematria, you'll understand why it's important that this guy died on the date of October 1st. And I will explain more as we go along, but just remember, in 2015, we had the Berg, Oregon shooting on this date as well, 10-1. And Robert Kennedy supposedly gave a speech in Roseburg, Oregon, 10 days before he died. So let's move on and let's look at some of these other things, and then I will explain more about why this date is important. So in gematria, if you read out the word busboy, what this guy is, busboy, it just so happens to equal 33 in gematria. And also his last name was Romero. That equals 33 in gematria. Just like if you write out Robert, Robert equals 33 in gematria. Just like if you write out Kennedy, that equals 33 in gematria. He was supposedly killed by a guy named Sirhan Sirhan. Sirhan equals 33. So, he was named twice, Sirhan Sirhan, 33, 33. Even this story coming out in October, it's very significant because October just so happens to equal 33. It's the only month to equal 33 in gematria. October also equals 78, which is also important to all of this because Sirhan Sirhan here, he just so happened to shoot Robert Kennedy 78 days after his birthday. That was on the 78th day of the year. And if you notice, if you read out his full name here, Sirhan Sirhan, it equals 78 as well. This busboy then, he was also a Mexican immigrant, which is really fitting for him to die now with, the whole Donald Trump stuff and wanting to build the wall. Donald Trump's the guy who, we were told won the election on the anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down. Give me a break. And then Donald Trump equals the same. Donald Trump in gematria equals 48, just like the word wall. He won the biggest election upset since the year 1948. The Mexican-American War came to an end in the year 1848, and so on. Pence, the 48th vice president. The word Freemason equals 48. But off subject here, they told us this guy was a Mexican immigrant, and Mexico in gematria equals 33. And also Mexican equals 33, How fitting. Also, Robert Kennedy, if you write out Robert Kennedy in gematria, his name equals 156, and then also, of course, 66. And that's interesting because if you write out 33 as words, 33, it equals 66 and 156. And he got shot by Sirhan Sirhan on the 156th day of the year. What are the odds of that, His name equals 156. He got shot on the 156th day of the year. He died on 6-6. Look at that, 66. If you write out 33, it equals 66. Can't be more fitting. This Romero guy, busboy, he's supposedly died at the age of 68, which is also interesting. Robert Kennedy supposedly died in the year 68, just after Martin Luther King Jr. died, which is significant to civil rights, which is, super synced up. I don't want to lose you, but, civil rights equals 64, and the Civil Rights Act was passed in the year 64 by Lyndon B. Johnson, who equals 64 and died at the age of 64, and so on, But the year 68 also just so happened to be 33 years before 9/11. And the reason that's important is because 911 was made the emergency dialing code in the year 68. And that was also the year that World Trade Center construction began on the date of August 6th, which in most parts of the world, they read it as 6/8 of the year 68. And 9/11 even happened 68 days before George Bush, or after George Bush's birthday in 2001. And he graduated from Yale Skull and Bones in the year 68. So it was definitely a synced up year. And even if you write out 33, remember, that equals 156. And the 156 prime number just so happens to be 911. There's also another cipher called Jewish gematria. And the reason that's important is if you write out Al-Qaeda terrorist attack, that equals 911 in gematria, in Jewish gematria, and false flag. Notice that equals 156, and also 33. Also, the company who built the World Trade Center was Magnuson Klemenkic Associates, that equals 156 in gematria. So, just interesting how it syncs up to 9/11, 68 being a really important year. Robert Kennedy supposedly being assassinated, absolutely by the numbers. And, in regards to civil rights and Martin Luther King Jr. dying that year as well, it's just interesting that Robert Kennedy died at the age of 42. And if you write out the word bus, it equals 42. And if you write out the word boy, it equals 42. And just think about that in regards to Black history, right? People calling him boy. And, the Rosa Parks and the bus. Rosa Parks got on that bus when she was age 42. And the super N-word here, it just so happens to equal 42. That's why Jackie Robinson wore the number 42. That's why they told us that, Rodney King, his birthday was supposedly 4/2, April 2nd. February equals 42. It's Black History Month. It has the 42nd day of the year in it. And much, much more. This number, super important. So interesting, he dies at the age of 42. And Martin Luther King Jr. also died on the date of 4/4, which is interesting because if you write out 44 in gematria, 44 just so happens to equal 144. And when you look up Robert Kennedy, he supposedly died at 1:44, right? The time was 1:44 when he died. And Sirhan was even born in the year 44. But Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream, right? And Abraham Lincoln in history, we're told, he also had a dream that he was going to get assassinated on the date of 4/4, and then Abraham Lincoln later on, 10 days later, got shot on 14/4. So think about this Romero guy dying on 10/1, which is the anniversary of the Roseburg, Oregon shooting. And, Robert Kennedy gave a speech at Roseburg, Oregon 10 days before he supposedly died. Read out 10 days later at gematria, it equals 144. And JFK even died 144 days after meeting the Pope. Donald Trump in 2017, he met Pope Francis on his 4th month and 4th day of being the president, and it was on the 144th day of the year that Donald Trump met the Pope. Donald Trump released the JFK files last year 10 days before 144 days after his birthday, which was October 26th, Hillary Clinton's birthday, in the month of October. October also, the 10th month. Think about it, 10th month. In satanic gematria, if you write out just the word 10, it also equals 144, right? And what I was talking about last year was how we got a story about Marilyn Manson and how he was injured, and then he released his album called Heaven Upside Down, and the main song on there was called Say 10. And in the song he says, you say God, and I say 10, like the number. And if you write out the number, if you write out God just so happens to equal 10 in gematria, but so does Satan. Satan equals 10. And then there was his 10th album. It came out in the 10th month. It's because Marilyn Manson understands this knowledge, It stems back to other ancient things such as Hermeticism that has a belief that everything is the same and everything is the opposite. So God equals 10, Satan equals 10. Marilyn Manson saying, you say God, and I say 10. And the reason that he was important, they put him in the mainstream media, Then they put Rose McGowan in the mainstream media about the Harvey Weinstein stuff just after Hurricane Harvey, The mainstream media is all about Harvey Weinstein or whatever, and Rose McGowan being one of the big people against him. Rose McGowan used to date Marilyn Manson, and she was even in a music video with Marilyn Manson called Coma White. And the reason that's important is because that music video was all about the assassination of JFK. And then they released the JFK files. And then 144 days after Trump's birthday that year, we got that shooting in Sutherland Springs. And I was talking about how it's synced up to the movie Stand By Me. And there's something to do with Kiefer Sutherland. Then we got the Sutherland Springs church shooting. Also, in history, Jackie Kennedy died 10 days before the anniversary of JFK's birthday. And Marilyn Monroe also sang happy birthday to JFK 10 days before his actual birthday. And think about Marilyn Monroe and Marilyn Manson. That's where he got part of his name. The other part was from Charles Manson. And just after I document all this stuff and talk about how it's synced up to Charles Manson ends up dying, In November that year, Charles Manson died. And the other reason that it's important to this date of 10/1 is because if JFK was still alive right now, he would be 101 years old, right? A lot like 10/1. I also have to add that Donald Trump is 10 presidents after JFK, which is, think about it. He's 10 presidents after, so JFK was 10 presidents before him. And Donald Trump's also the 44th person to be the president. So 10 presidents after JFK, the 44th president. Marilyn Manson's original promo video for that song, Say 10, was also what was it? Oh, it was a video about Donald Trump's head being blown off, right? So an assassination on Donald Trump. JFK was also the 44th term president. He served the 44th term as the president. And the first president to die in office just so happened to be William Henry Harrison. And he died at the age of 68. And he just so happened to die on the date of 4/4. And his name in Gematria his full name equals 144 in Gematria. That's also why we got the Stormy Daniels stuff that came out 10 years after Trump supposedly sexually assaulted her or whatever, 10 years. And then Trump supposedly paid her off 10 days before the election. It's because of all of this stuff that is going on, this ongoing narrative that they love bringing out in October. But, hopefully you get the gist of what I'm saying. There's an ongoing media narrative that is connected to JFK and Donald Trump. And, they're reminding us about all of this over and over. It's also interesting that I'm randomly putting this video out, finally having the time to put it out on the date of 10/10. And tomorrow will be 10 days after this date. So possibly we'll get a news story that's connected to it. So I don't know, just pretty interesting. I guarantee that's why we got this story. This guy dies on 10/1. He's absolutely synced up by the numbers. You just can't even make it up. Busboy, Romero, Robert, all of these things equal 33. So we'll leave it there. I gotta go to band practice. I'm hoping I can make a whole bunch of these other videos when I get home later. Lots and lots of synchronicity things going on. And I'll explain it if I get some videos. But, if you want to learn more about this, check out some of my other videos. Check out the links in the description. It goes on every single day in our mainstream media. So have a good one. Peace.